Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my ridiculously stupid boss fired me after a car accident left me in a coma. I decided to get revenge and teach him a lesson. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the video. English is not my first language, so please excuse any mistakes. So I live in a pretty small city, so small that it can almost be called a town. The population is low, the living conditions are decent at best, and the government is lax. I know it sounds bad, and it is bad when compared to other cities, but in our own bubble it is fine. Nothing fancy, but nothing deadly either. The shops here are mostly owned by families, so you won't find any chain restaurants until you drive into the heart of the city, and even then they are far and few in between. Although they are bustling with people. I work in one such shop, and it is a small cafe that is big enough to house the few customers we get, though it's pretty popular with the locals. The owner is a man in his 30s, let's call him Ray. He is extremely strict and micromanages his employees so much that I feel like I'm living with my father again. However, his shop is one of the few in the area that pay well, and I've been working here for a year already, so I've learned how to work around him. Though despite being popular, the shop is not as maintained as you would expect it to be, or how it should be. As I said, the government is lax, so anything like a health inspector is a rare creature. Which means that Ray put his money only where he deems necessary, and keeping his cafe hygienic is clearly not what he deems necessary. The soda machine nozzles that should be cleaned regularly, I cannot even tell you when was the last time I saw them getting cleaned. And as I said before, I've worked here for a year. Cross-contamination is so normal that I once went to Ray to voice my concern, and then he yelled at me to not teach him how to run his shop. Money should not be an issue because there are only 4 employees including me, and it would not be much to pay us extra to clean things or invest in a few more refrigerators, but as I said, the owner is very frugal with his money. I have no choice but to keep quiet, even though me and the 3 other employees feel guilty working in such a place. We have once wanted to quit altogether, but it's not like that will change anything. The owner will just hire more because there's always need for employment, but we 4 still continue to look for a better alternative to quit this place, and that was when I was met with an accident. Accidents are rare in our place considering how few people actually own a car, but I guess I was finally out of luck. Everything about that is still so fuzzy in my mind that I don't even know how I met with the accident, but I remember waking up to bright lights and feeling completely disoriented. The nurse came into my room after a few minutes and called for the doctor, who filled me in on everything. Apparently, I was on the sidewalk when an out-of-control car crashed into me. And apparently, it had been 3 months since I'd been in a coma. That was the thing that concerned me more than my accident. 3 months of my life gone just like that. I don't even know if I still had an apartment or not. After a few hours, a man came into my room, let's call him Ben, dressed in a neat suit you don't see often here. He profusely apologized to me on behalf of his son, who was the one driving the car. Ben had been the one to pay for my hospital bills and even covered the rent for me when my landlord called. I also got to know that in this time Ray also called me, and despite Ben informing him that I was in a coma, he still threw a fit and fired me. I was literally in a coma, and he told Ben that whenever I wake up he can tell me that I've been fired. The audacity of him, I swear. I did not even have time to panic because Ben informed me that he is the manager of a restaurant chain in the center of the city and would offer me a job for all the problems his son caused. He also offered to get me an apartment close by and have my things shifted if I wanted to take him up on the offer. I asked him to give me a few days to think as I was not allowed to leave immediately anyway. He handed me a card and told me to call him anytime before apologizing again. Now that I had time to process everything, I was not sure if I was supposed to get angry, happy, or suspicious. On one hand, I lost 3 months of my life, and on the other hand, I got offered a new job in the center of the city, but on the other hand, this all seemed too good to be true. Was Ben doing all this so I don't press charges on his son? Maybe, but after talking to the nurse, it seemed that Ben's son had already been arrested and was let out only recently. I talked to the only 3 people I knew, and after some discussions that lasted as long as my physical therapy, I came to a conclusion. I called Ben up and asked if there was space for 3 more employees in his restaurant, and while he did have space, it was only for 2 more people. Though he informed me that he could potentially take up 3 more employees, but that will be a call he will make only after interviewing the 3 other people. I told him that I'm willing to take up his offer for a job and will send my 3 friends for an interview. When I finally got discharged and could start packing my things up, I got a message from Ray himself to get back to work. Yep, he did not even bother asking how I was, just straight up messaged me to get back to work now that I'm okay. I informed Ray that he had been the one to fire me, and this man had the audacity to say that he's willing to take me back, but he would be cutting money for a total of 4 months of absence. I wanted to simply curse him out and decline his offer, but I decided to wait and see how my friends fared in the interview. I got to know that while 2 of my friends got the job, Ben could not make space for the 3rd, but he did offer to set him up in another shop just across the street. It was a gift shop, and though the pay will not be as much as we would be getting, it would still be more than what he earned at the cafe. And he seemed happy to accept it, considering he won't have as much work and can concentrate on his online classes. But before starting my job at Ben's restaurant, I told Ray that I'll be coming in for work. Now, I could either call a health inspector and have him see the state of the cafe, and that might be the smart thing to do, but we all know that I won't be telling this story if it ended so nicely. Nope, I decided to go in for work, record everything as Ray yelled at me for making excuses, and finally got in the back. There I clicked pictures of everything, all the meats just placed out in the hot weather, the dirty insides of the nozzles, the rotting bread, and poor condition of the dishwasher that never properly cleaned the dishes, and every little moldy corner of the cooking station. Then I simply walked out even as customers started coming in and posted everything on my Facebook while tagging my friends and Ray and his cafe. By the end of the day, I had several calls and texts from Reynolds, but I had already moved into my new place and blocked his number. My friends and I decided to throw a little party at my place, and we laughed as we saw each and every single one of us trashing Ray and showing our anger. But by the time the next day arrived, things had gotten much bigger. Apparently, the post got so much traction that it ended up alerting the health inspectors who came to assess the place and promptly shut it down. The backlash Ray got was so big that someone even filed a case against him and got him arrested. When police contacted me and my friends for our involvement, we told them we tried several times to stop Ray, but he threatened to fire us, and one of my friends even had text exchanges with Ray where she told him her concern and he threatened to have her fired and blacklisted if she contacted the authorities. Our involvement was then dropped and Ray got charged with workplace harassment on top of everything else. Ray's business was shut down within days, and I got to know that after coming out of jail. He moved out of the city and we have not heard of him since then. And yeah, ripe stars, if you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me. Thank you so much, and the next one is titled, No, I Did Not Cheat. For the past couple of years, I've been living in the lovely country of Japan together with my husband, and before you ask, no, I'm not Japanese, I just love the country. He was born here and we decided to move to his hometown. It's a small city, but there's enough to do without getting bored. I would describe us as an Asian male, white female couple, which is not so common in Western countries, and it can feel like we are some rare shiny Pokemon, SAMWF in rural Japan, lots of staring, occasional secret picture, or even small chats if an old lady is brave enough to approach us. It can feel uncomfortable eating at a restaurant because kids will turn around in their seat and stare at us the whole time with an open fish mouth. Coincidentally, there's a small US military base located in this city. The closer you are downtown, the more American families you see. I'm constantly mistaken for being military by Americans and Japanese, which is understandable. Besides myself, I only know 5 other interracial marriages here. It's always locals who ask about my American husband when I'm out alone, which I respond in Japanese. Basically saying that my husband is Japanese and I live here, or something along those lines. Americans never ask about my marriage as they assume my spouse is American. When we are together in public, we do abnormal couple behavior such as holding hands. No, couples rarely hold hands here in public, let alone say I love you. We don't really go downtown too often since it's all paid to park and it's a nightmare to find a place. So it was a beautiful warm day for the first time in months, but we decided to battle for a spot and walk around the shops. The crowd was heavy since the weather was great and winter was ending. The season for new American families to move here just finished, so I'm sure this was many people's first time to leisurely walk and shop outside. We find a parking spot and made our way to the outside shops. Of course, we are holding hands and casually talking and laughing. Wow! I hear this from an American woman about 10 feet behind us. You should know that a Japanese stereotype against Americans is that we are rudely and obnoxiously loud. And this wow was loud enough for me to turn my head around at the noise. So she was with 2 other moms who had like 3 kids each. They were staring at me, but perhaps we just accidentally had eye contact at the right time. Seriously? Another little homewrecker is doing this in public? Chill, woman, you're so loud even I can hear you. We find a table nearby at the Starbucks outside. We are enjoying our drinks when the same group of women approached us with their strollers in tow. They definitely had some sort of purpose with something to say to us. Let's call her Owner. Owner is woman in Japanese. Excuse me, but you need to keep whatever you're doing in your messed up home. Doing that in public in front of families to see is disgusting and immoral. My kids don't need to see such a bad display of marriage. I'm so confused, as was my husband who can speak English. Who knew drinking coffee outside was a crime against humanity and marriage? Me, I'm sorry, what did we do? Owner, you know exactly what you were doing. She points to my wedding ring. Me, no, I don't. Good lord, does your husband know about this? Is he on a ship right now? That's so like a dependerpotamus. Her friends laugh. In case you don't speak military, a dependerpotamus is slang for a military wife who stays home all day, does not clean, uses their spouse as an ATM, and looks like Jabba the Hutt. It dawns on me, she thinks I'm a military spouse and I'm cheating on my American husband. I started laughing because she is suggesting that I'm cheating on my husband with my husband. Me, this is my spouse. I'm actually not part of the military community and have a Japanese visa. Owner looks at my significant other up and down. The 2 women behind her apologize, but the owner did not believe it. Honor, no one would voluntarily want to live in this little town. Nice lie, but you're not representing the military community. You make all of us look bad. Who is your husband and what's his rank? Also, I need to know your dependent ID. My husband is a high rank, so he'll make sure your husband is aware of your infidelity. She pulls out her phone to probably type my response. I'm offended since this is actually a nice place to live and very open to foreigners. Me, look, my husband's name is Ray, not his real name, I don't want to reveal personal info. And he is sitting right here. I'm not gonna show you my military ID since I don't have one and you're not the police. As proof, you can obviously see our wedding bands match and there's a picture. I show her my phone screen, which is of us in traditional Japanese clothes on our wedding day. Her eyes became huge at the picture. Her 2 friends and their spawn have already started walking away. Owner, why are you in a relationship with him? You should be in a normal relationship and start having a family with American kids. She says some other statements which I would consider racist against the Asian race. It's so ironic because we are in Japan and she is fussing about me being married to a Japanese man. My husband has been quiet throughout the whole exchange and says to me that we should go. I agree and stood up. Me, stop. The things you are saying are extremely offensive. I was part of the military community myself some years ago and what you are doing is against spousal conduct. She smirked. Go ahead and tell people what I did then. My high-ranking husband is an E7 and everything will be swept under the rug no matter what happens. You cannot touch me. So that's what I did. Note, this is a small military community, someone does something minor and it's talked about between wives like chickens. So later that day, I run into my friend who works on the base and she is well known in the community for being one of the main event coordinators. Of course, I don't miss this chance to comply with owner's demand and explain to my friend about the exchange and how it made my husband extremely uncomfortable with her remarks. She asked me if this person looked like so-and-so, which I said yes. My friend rolls her eyes. Friend, she just arrived a couple months ago and is already causing problems with rumors and drama, and it looks like we have a racist too. I'll make sure what she said is passed on. It's been half a year later, and I did not hear anything about owner again since I distanced myself from making military friends here. I have only been in my new city for a little over 2 years and experienced more drama from military families than I have my whole high school career. That is until now. Last week I ran into my friend who's getting ready to leave back to the United States. We had a little discussion about her moving and my family planning and dropped a bombshell. Friend, do you remember owner who accused you of cheating on your non-existent military spouse and called your husband a racist name? Me, of course, I have not heard anything from her since. Friend, well, I mentioned we were already having problems with her not long after she got here. So I told my boss that there's a person who was bothering and threatening civilians, asking for IDs, which is not allowed for someone with her status. My boss was extremely interested after I mentioned her name, because owner was scheduled for an interview in my department. I suggested we look at her social media accounts from her past behavior because we don't tolerate racism here. It was easy to find her Twitter and Facebook, particularly Facebook since we have many mutual friends. Her social media was shocking. While she set her Facebook to private, her Twitter was littered with malicious tweets and retweets. This included racism slang from many nationalities, colorful language, and using her husband's military rank to bully others. She made it very clear that she wants to see her current city burned to the ground. And why would anyone want to learn Japanese since it sounds terrible? We printed some of the more extreme things she posted and we still invited her to the interview. Oh, and did I mention my boss is Japanese? Well, so she comes into the interview, which I was part of, and I asked 3 good things about her, which is, she says, dependent, gets things done, and friendly. And by the way, ripe stars, shouldn't that say independent? That kind of surprised me. Anyway, my boss just looked at her for a second before she pulled out her tweets and asked her to explain how she can friendly serve the local community if she hates it so much. Anna was floored and said someone hacked into her account despite there being at least 3 years of slanderous tweets. We thanked her for coming and said that we cannot accept an employee with this conduct. As far as I know, she is still not working because some spouses found her Twitter not long after the interview and it was shared in all departments. No one will touch her application now. Me, so all of this was discovered because I told you about her accusations? Friend? Yes. Oh, and she's kind of an outcast socially right now because she cheated on her husband a couple months ago. There you have it, folks. Because one person could not mind their own business, they lost a potential job and had their social media exposed. Super ironic since she became the dependopotamus and adulterer, the same things that she was accusing me of. And yeah, ripe stars, honestly, if you have never believed in karma, I think this story is the prime example for karma actually being a thing. That Karen got a massive dose of karma and it literally ruined her life. Let me know what you think about this story in the comments. And honestly, what was kind of interesting is to hear that some expats in foreign countries are actually pretty racist towards the countries they are in. Which, if you ask me, is kind of ridiculous and ironic and of course absolutely not acceptable. Shouldn't you be thankful that this foreign country accepted you as a visitor or even as an expat? These people are absolutely ridiculous. And the next one is titled, "Guy breaks into my car, dies, and somehow it is my fault." I live in the US, but I am an immigrant from the Philippines. This happened 4 to 5 years ago when I went back home alone for a month-long vacation. I rented a house with no parking spot for a month and my cousin let me borrow her rarely used car that I had to park on the street. I was only there for a month, so I was almost always out and about meeting friends and relatives to make the most of my stay. One day at noon, I walked out to the car to find the door open and a strange guy sprawled over the driver's and front seat. Puke spread all over the dashboard and what looked like severe nosebleed. I was angry at first, but when I realized the guy had no pulse and not breathing, I administered first aid and called an ambulance and the cops. I also needed to call a mechanic because the car battery was dead. I later found out that the car alarm went off until the battery died. I slept through the alarm, I'm a heavy sleeper, so I had a trashed car to wash, a battery to replace and a police to visit. Very fun. The guy was pronounced dead upon arrival and initial findings suspected illicit drug use. The cops suspected the guy to be a junkie and trying to steal the car, but had OD'd in the middle of it. Apparently, the place I rented was surrounded by slums and known as a hive for illicit drug use and sales. A sad story to be sure. However, this being the Philippines, I was averse to pressing charges, slow as hell justice system, and who would I even press charges to? And at that point I kind of felt bad for the guy and I just chalked it all up as a bad experience. 4 days later at around 8 PM, an older couple, claiming to be the parents of the guy who died, with several tenots, basically community police, came for a visit. At first I thought they were there to apologize or make amends in behalf of their son, but lo and behold they were asking me for money. I was irritated at first, but then I thought money must be really tight and so I tried to be understanding and polite, but it was still a firm no. I understand that a guy died, but it was through no fault of my own. After that, all hell broke loose. The previously calm mother cried as loudly as possible and tried to scratch me. The father tried to grab my shirt and wanted to punch me. Thankfully, the Tanots were impartial and herded them away from me. All the while they were insinuating I had something to do with their son dying. I was a bit shaken and genuinely just wanted to get away from there, but I made the mistake of putting that off until the next day. At around midnight I was awoken to the sound of breaking glass and metal being ponded. They made enough of a racket to wake me up. About 4 to 5 guys were destroying the car and spewing all profanities they could muster. I called the cops and went to stay at my cousin's place. In the end, I had to stay 2 weeks more than I planned. I helped the cops try to investigate my case and paid for the damage incurred on the car. To add insult to injury, I never got my deposit on the house rental back. The house was not even damaged or anything. The end of the investigation resulted in 3 people caught for destruction of property and grave coercion. Aside from profanities, they were also threatening me to pay up. Thank goodness the rental had a sturdy fence. A neighbor also presented themselves as a witness. Last I heard, they also had prior offenses that got stacked on top of my case. Parents were not charged. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.